Hey guys, let's see, Sunday the 13th of August. I suspect if you're here, you probably have spondylolisthesis. That's a big term. Or you have had surgery, or you're contemplating it. So, I've watched a ton of videos myself, just like you probably have. And I thought I would just put some updates on my procedure and processes and how they go, because there's a lot of info out there that some of it's good, some of it's horror stories. So I think the more content we can get out there for people, the better we all are, because I spent countless hours trying to watch videos and see how people were doing with this process. So real quickly on me, I am 12 days post-op ALIF. So anterior, meaning the front, they go in and they scraped what was left of my L5 disc. It was bone on bone. So they scraped the rest of that out. They jack it up a little bit. They put a cage in and some bone marrow material that will allow you to fuse. And then they flip you over. And so in my case, there's hardware in the back. So I have two, probably 2-inch incisions either side of the spine. So there's 2 incisions that they put in the pedicle hardware. So screws, 2 rods to stabilize the L5-S1 joint. So that's what I just had done 12 days ago. So I guess a little background on me, on how I got it. So I fractured the pars level bilateral when I was 16. I'm 52 now. So I've lived with mild to moderate back pain my entire life. Most of the time it's been manageable, 2, 3, 4, and you get to the point where you just almost numb it out of your head. It's always there. It's just that constant ache. So initially when I had my accident when I was 16, I was doing some overhead work and I basically lost my footing with some heavy material overhead and hyperextended going back. And I felt the pain, didn't know exactly what extent what had happened, but I definitely was in a pretty good amount of pain at that point. They took some x-rays, gave me a couple weeks off work, and pretty much gave me a prescription for Celebrex and said, "Have a good one, kid." So I've just dealt with it basically, and it's been manageable, most all of my life, except there's been a few bouts that peaked up to probably 7 to 8 on the pain level, causing me to not be able to sleep. I had to take a couple weeks off work for it to calm down. Why, I don't know. I don't know if scar tissue retore, if what was left of the disc herniated, don't know. But I had a couple different instances where that flared up like that. One in my late 30s, then I think also in my late 20s. But anyway, I've noticed in the last year that the numbness and tingling in my left side was becoming worse. I felt like I was always wearing a wet sock. And just that my leg wasn't totally numb, but it just, everything was just, you didn't have the sensation. And it just seemed like it was getting worse. So I went ahead and decided to shop for a new spine doctor. I had done a lot of research in 2010, a neurosurgeon and also an orthopedic, and they told me at the time that what'll fix this is a spine fusion. But they also told me don't do it for the pain. Do it when your quality of life is shot. And when you're in this situation, it's hard to understand the difference between the two because the two really go hand in hand. It took me a long time to really understand what that meant. So I've dealt with the pain, as I mentioned before. It was manageable. But the quality of life part, and when you start looking at things that you give up to do, whether it's golfing, water skiing, whatever it is that you're into, and you start adding those things up, initially, an item here or there, you don't think much about it, but when you really start looking at it, as I had done, all the things that I had given up, I thought, I've reached that point. I've changed a lot of my habits in life. I'm basically living like I'm much older than I am because I have a back that is much older than it is or should be. So that's when I determined that the time was right to go ahead and do it. So as I said, I'm 12 days post-op, ALIF, and I've watched numerous videos of folks that have had different successful or unsuccessful results. Some folks are out walking a mile or more on their first day, and to those folks, kudos to you. Kudos to you, because for me, my first day waking up in the hospital, they tried that night to get me up. I sat up on the side of the bed, and that's all I could do because of the nausea. For me, it was the nausea. So we gave up. The second day, I managed to get up to the doorway, to the bathroom, back to the bed, and that was about it. And again, because of nausea, I guess the anesthesia and stuff really hits me hard. So, of course, the whole log rolling thing, they taught me that, and that was excruciating the first couple days. So the third day, I then was doing the little stints up and down as far as the nurse ward area, enough to be able to check that box, so to speak. Still a little bit of nausea, but so that was 3 days, and then the next morning I checked out after breakfast. So the ride home, they gave me the medications to deal with that. The ride home wasn't terribly bad, and then since I've been home, just taking each day by day, trying to add activities. And you really don't, when you have this procedure done, you really don't know. You see people say, don't overdo it. Well, what exactly does that mean? So for me, prior to the surgery, I was walking 1.5 miles a day and going to the gym a couple days a week. But after, by the time I got home, first couple days just walking around the living room, building up, some laps, so to speak, around the living room was about it. So by week 1, so 7 to 8 days in, trying to walk up the street outside my neighborhood and back. And they also started PT, which is just some mild stretching, moving your legs, nothing strenuous, but moving your legs, your hips, your glutes, doing little things like that. And then walking up the street and back was enough for me that night, I couldn't get to sleep. I don't know if it's because of the spine repositioning, where it's bolted down now, so to speak, differently. The muscles slightly in a different position configuration. Of course, obviously the area that's been cut, but glutes, hips, everything was just on fire. So I had to basically dial it back, that I did too much. And so learning what exactly that means for you is important. So learning to listen to your body and understanding when you had enough and dialing it back. That's the key point there. So I also noticed the initial, for me, the nerve tingling, numbness in my left leg. After a couple of days, I noticed that back. In the hospital, they have you on, quite a bit of stuff to numb you, from the procedure. And then the socks they have you in they're real tight, constrictive. So I didn't notice it, but after I got those off, I definitely noticed that it was still there. But that seems to be a common thing. Most people seem to say that the nerve damage from the years of, in my case, L5 sitting on top of that nerve root, it takes a while for that to come back. So I noticed that came back, and I also noticed when I was trying to sleep that if you ever have that, you're almost asleep and you have like a little kick, a little spasm or something, restless leg syndrome, whatever they want to call it, but it kind of wakes you up and then you try to go back to sleep. Well, I was getting that about every minute. So I think because my nerves basically were starting to wake up after being compressed for so long. So talking to the doctor's office, they put me on gabapentin, I believe it's called, which seems pretty common with people with back fusions or back nerve problems. So, but other than that, where I am now, so I'm day 12, I've weaned off pretty much the Oxycontin. I do take one when I go to sleep at night. Other than that, Tylenol during the day. I still do take the, I tried to wean off the muscle relaxer, but between the muscle spasms and as I talked about earlier about not being able to sleep at night, I thought it may be a little too early for that. So between that and the nerve, gabapentin. So take those and Tylenol. So pain's not extraordinary by any means. It's there, incision pain, things like that. And of course, activity. If I do a little too much, meaning I'm not, building anything, but it's just walking movement that, you got to relearn, retrain basically where you were. So, as I'm finding out. But I have a 2-week checkup tomorrow, which is actually 13 days. But I don't think they'll do an x-ray then, because I have another one at 6 weeks. I'm guessing they probably do it then. But probably just to look at the incisions overall, see how I'm doing. And I think I'm right where I need to be, or should be at this point. So I'll try to post going forward as far as progress updates, and because I know it's hard to sift through, you know, the material that's out there, and whether it's horror stories or whatever. So anyway, if you're in this position, know that you know, I'm almost 2 weeks out, doing well, and I'll update from there, and we'll see how the progress continues to go. Hopefully, it'll continue to be good, and we'll update you from there. All right, thanks.